On the 19th of August, Moderna added $44.5 billion of market value in a single session. The company books $145 million of revenue a quarter and loses $782. So here's my call. 65% odds Moderna's cash drops below $4 billion before the end of 2027 from 6.9 today. Because look at what actually got priced. Merck and Moderna said the cancer trial worked. They didn't say by how much. Not a number, not a margin, nothing at all. The size of the win is being held back for a medical meeting later this year, which means $44 billion moved on a result nobody outside those two companies has actually seen. I want to be careful here because the science is real. This is the first time an mRNA cancer therapy has ever won a phase 3, and the first time anything has beaten Keytruda alone in this setting. The question was never whether it works. It's who gets paid and whether Moderna is still liquid when that day arrives. Two things landed on the same day, and only one of them mattered. The first was routine. The FDA cleared Moderna's flu shot for adults over 50, which makes it the company's fifth product worldwide. The second was the trial. 1,137 patients whose melanoma had already been surgically removed, randomized 2-to-1, given either Merck's Keytruda by itself or Keytruda plus a vaccine built from the mutations in that specific patient's own tumor. 6 weeks to manufacture, one patient at a time. It hit its primary endpoint, and it hit the key secondary one as well. That part isn't in dispute. Here's what a top-line announcement actually is. It tells you the trial won. It tells you nothing about the margin of the win. There's no hazard ratio in that release. There's no p-value. The companies say the full data are coming at an international medical meeting, and they haven't said when. Meanwhile, the number circulating everywhere, a hazard ratio of 0.51, isn't from this trial at all. It's from Keynote 942, the Phase 2b, a far smaller study whose 5-year follow-up was presented at ASCO earlier this year. Different trial, different size, different patients. 4 scale on what's still unknown. Citi analysts had set 0.65 as the line for a clear win, and nobody outside the companies knows which side of it this landed on. Now, the part one find genuinely interesting, because I haven't seen anyone run this. Moderna and Merck split this drug 50-50. All costs, all profits worldwide. Merck runs the clinical trials, Moderna runs the manufacturing. So look at what the market handed each of them that day. Moderna got $44.5 billion. Merck got 42. That's a ratio of 1.06 on an asset the two of them own in equal halves. On the dollars, the market priced this almost perfectly consistently. Run it as a percentage instead, and the whole picture inverts. Those same dollars are 13% of Merck. They're 177% of Moderna. That's the entire risk asymmetry in one line. And here's the mechanism nobody's pricing. When that hazard ratio finally prints, it's a single number landing on both companies at once. If it comes in worse than the 0.65 that analysts drew as the win line, Merck hands back a rounding error and still owns Keytruda outright, a $31.5 billion a year drug. Moderna hands back most of itself because there's no second business underneath to catch it. If you follow single stock teardowns like this one, subscribe, because the next one is the memory supercycle. Analysts are throwing around $6 billion a year in melanoma alone. Take that at face value for a moment. Half of it belongs to Merck. So the gross line to Moderna is roughly $3 billion before Moderna pays its half of the costs. And Merck separately keeps 100% of Keytruda, which this combination pulls straight through. Now set that against the balance sheet. Cash and investments fell from $7.5 billion to $6.9 in a single quarter. The company guides to somewhere between 4.7 and 5.2 by the end of this year, and it paid a $950 million litigation settlement in July. Filing is described only as within months. One oncologist quoted in the coverage expects patients could have access by early 2027, and that's his estimate rather than the company's. Bottom line, that session repriced the science correctly and repriced the company incorrectly. On my read, this is overheated, and the measure is specific. 177% in one session for a half share of an asset whose effect size is still unpublished. And the tape has already started paying that view. Moderna closed at $174.38 that day. It closed at $145.13 on the 21st, about 17% lower, with no new data released in between. The load-bearing reason is that 50-50 split. Moderna took a 177% move on something it owns half of, while carrying a business that lost $782 million last quarter on $145 million of revenue. If I'm watching one name in this trade, it's Merck, which will sound strange on an episode about Moderna. Merck gets the identical half of the drug, keeps all of Keytruda, and paid 12.6% for it instead of 177. Moderna is the pure expression of the science and the far worse expression of the risk. That's a lens, not advice. The call once more, 65% odds cash drops below $4 billion before the end of 2027 from 6.9 today. 3 things I'd watch, each with a number that tells you I'm wrong. The hazard ratio, whenever that medical meeting lands. If it prints at or under 0.65, the asset really is worth roughly what got paid on the 19th, and my caution was misplaced. Quarterly cash, which fell $600 million last quarter. If that burn drops under $300 million without a one-off explaining it, the runway math changes and this call weakens considerably. Quarterly revenue at $145 million today. If that isn't clearing $300 million a quarter by late 2027 with the flu shot launched, then nothing has actually changed underneath the story. And what would change my mind outright? Merck buying out Moderna's half. That converts a liquidity problem into a cash pile overnight. And it's the one outcome that makes every number I just gave you irrelevant. Science got a genuine first on the 19th. The effect size is still unpublished, and half of whatever it turns out to be worth belongs to somebody else. I'm Big Z. Follow me. See you in the next deep dive.